is a stamping technique, but I've been able to kind of take that technique and take it a notch up to be able to work with digital images. I am a digital creator, so I like to be able to get the most bang for my buck in my digitals, and I wanted to be able to see if I could also do this with digital images. So the first thing I wanted to show you here is the actual technique that you can do with stamping. This is called triple time card stamping because, as you can see, you have 3 layers here, and you have one image that's stamped on all 3 layers. And when you add a backing and foam dots, it rises it up. So you could do this with any types of your stamps, as long as it's big enough to be able to, fold over to the other layers. It's a very easy technique, but there's so many things that you can do with it. You can do it with larger background stamps. You can do it with smaller stamps that I have here. Sentiments, probably not so much, but anything that will allow you to be able to layer on your card matting. Now, I decided I wanted to see if I could do it with some of my digital images. And one of the things that I ran into is when you're doing a digital image, you have to cut your paper. Well, you can't always get it lined up exactly the same way, and that's really what the technique calls for, is you have to line it up perfectly so that way when you layer your paper, your images will match. But it's a little bit difficult to do with digital paper because you may not necessarily know where the center is. It might move on you, and it might be a little bit more difficult to create. But this is where I kind of hacked it using these dies. And these, you guys might be familiar with these. These are stacking dies. And essentially, these are the rectangular dies. And the die sets typically come in several layers. So if you like to layer cards, this is a really great way to make sure that you got layered paper that's exactly the same size to work with all of your layers. So this is what we're going to be using to actually create the images cut out to be able to layer them up. Now, the other thing that I liked about using these dies is when I cut these, and I'll show you how I do it, I'm able to create 3 cards with one panel. So just with this panel alone, I can create 3 cards. Now, if you're doing it with this, but you don't have the dies, you're only going to be able to create 1 panel. I guess you probably could, when I show you the technique, you could create 3, but it's a little bit more difficult. That's another thing that I like about this technique is with 1 sheet, I can get 3 cards out of this. So let's go ahead and go over some of the supplies that I'm going to be working with. Now, I just shared with you the rectangle die, which I'm going to be using. And I got 3 dies that pretty much matched the size that I needed in my instructions. Okay. I've got some white cardstock here. I've got black cardstock. I've got my foam dots. This is my hack here. I've got some embellishments. Since we're working with butterflies, I decided to use the transparent wings. And then I have these other butterflies that I also picked up over at Hobby Lobby. And I was able to use those on another card that I used. But these matched really well. And then this is from the Field Notes ephemera kit from Tim Holtz. As you can see, I also used remnant rubs. So I got some of my remnant rubs here. And then I think I said foam dots. The other thing you're going to need, of course, is a Big Shot, which we'll be playing with as well. And then for the actual stamping technique, I have 3 archival inks. I have fossilized amber, I have pilled paint, and I have crackling campfire. Okay. So the first thing I want to show you is how to do it with stamping. And it's a very easy technique. Go ahead and grab my paper. All right, and then following along in the directions, you're going to cut your card base. And your card base is like any other A2 card base that you probably have seen before. I folded it in half. That's an A2 or an A2 card. I just took my 8.5 by 11 and I folded it in half. and then I cut it in half was 5.5, and then I cut it at 4 1/4. So you're going to be able to get 2 card bases. Okay. So once you have your 8.5 by 11, fold it, score it, and fold it at 5.5, and then cut it at 4 1/4, and that'll give you 2 card bases. The next thing you want to do is you want to cut out your second layer. Now your second layer is going to be, let's see, 4.5 by 3.5, and then your third layer is 3.5 by 2 1/4. So essentially, it's going to be 1/4 inches for your other paper. I hope I said that right. All right. So to stamp, there we go. I'm not going to even use a MISTI. I'm going to use my acrylic block here. And the stamp sets that I'm working with are some butterflies. Now, as you can see here, I only have 2 layers, and that's because I'm going to use my cardstock as my back layer. If you want to have the 3 layers like this one here, then you're going to have to cut this third layer, and we'll do that right now, so I can do it exactly the same way. All right, so this back layer is going to be, let's see, so 5 and apparently I can't measure and talk at the same time. All right. So this is a 4, maybe a little bit bigger. Yep. Okay, just 4 1/4 by 5.5 is what you're going to want to cut it for. All right. So when you put it on your card, it's going to be the same size, but we're going to trim it after we stamp it. All right. So to do the stamping, you're going to get all 3 layers, and you want to line them up. Let's see. And I'm going to cut this middle one just a little bit more. And typically, the rule of thumb is 1/4 inch. So when you give your layers, I don't typically do the stamping one. That's why my layers were a little bit off. But you just want to make sure you have some nice borders, because remember, you're going to be framing these in black cardstock. So as we go along, we may have to trim it a little bit more. All right. And you essentially just want to line these up exactly how you're going to want to have them on your card. Okay. Now, if you're using your MISTI, of course, you can use your magnets to hold it down. If you're not using your MISTI, I'm going to go ahead and use my MISTI for the stamping. If you're not using your MISTI, then you're just going to have to make sure that your paper is not going to move on you. I'm going to cut that down just a little bit more. Okay. There, that's better. All right. And then that's good. Okay. And then I'm going to put my magnet right in the middle because I know I'm not going to stamp in the middle. But you want to make sure it's nice and secure so that way when you start stamping, it's not going to move on you, because it's really important that your stamps line up. Okay, so now that we have that figured out, let me go ahead and get 3 stamps here. So since we're playing with butterflies today, I decided to go ahead and use some butterfly stamps. And this is from the Tim Holtz collection. And then you're just going to go ahead and line up your stamps. Now, when you're putting your stamps down, you want to make sure that they kind of go over the layers, because that's essentially what you're trying to do, is you're trying to get a couple of layers on your paper. So let's do that. Let's do that. And let's do that. All right. Okay, now again, the 3 colors I'm using here are this green, the yellow, and the orange. And then you're just going to go ahead and add your ink. And as you can see, you got a little gap here, but don't worry about that too much because we're going to be adding a layer. Okay. And then next we'll do the fossilized amber. These stamps stamp pretty well the first time, so I'm not going to even go over it a second time. And then the last one is the pill paint. All right. And I'm going to just put them aside to just dry a second so they don't smear. Okay, so as you saw when I stamped it, these are going to be really easy to line up. Once I get my black paper to mat it, these are going to line up perfectly because we stamped them perfectly, right? So as I put these aside to dry, we'll put it together in a minute. I want to show you how you can hack that with cardstock. So this is what we end up with. You do your stamping, you layer it on the black cardstock, and then you mat it, and that's kind of your technique. But you run into problems when you're working with cardstock because, again, you have to cut it exactly perfect. And I don't know about you, but I can't always do that. So I was able to hack it by just downsizing my paper. I sized it 3 panels exactly the same. So they're lined up perfectly. And when I stack the paper, I know that the images are going to be lined up perfectly. So I'm going to cut all 3 pieces exactly the same size. And then this last piece here, this is going to be the inside of our card. So you'll have the floral pieces for the outside, and then this piece here will be for your sentiment. And I love this because it really matched the outside, but you still have room to write your sentiment in here. So don't throw that away because you're going to want to keep that when we do the inside of our card. All right. So as you can see, these pieces are exactly the same. And when you're going to go to die cut it, all you have to do is stack them. You don't have to worry about lining up images because you know by cutting them exactly the same, your images are lined up. Okay? Now, I don't usually use my big shot on camera, so it's a little bit awkward. But to be able to show you this demonstration, I need to. All right. So we're going to go ahead and just put this down. Now, I found that when I added my dies, just to make sure they didn't move, I added some really old washi tape, and as you can see, it's not very sticky, so it's not going to pull up my paper. But I just found that just to make sure it didn't move, I went ahead and I set my die down. 1, 2, 3. Now, I know that there are magnetic plates out there, so that probably would be a good hack if you had a magnetic plate. I don't, so I'm just going to do it the old-fashioned way. And again, this isn't necessary if you have a steady hand, but I just wanted to show you if you are concerned about your dies moving, then you can, of course, put down your washi tape. It takes a little bit of patience in the beginning because you want to make sure it's lined up completely. But once you have it lined up, you're good to go. All right, so I'm happy with this. I'm going to go ahead and run this through. I mean, once you have it plated, you're in pretty good shape. All right. Okay, so let's see what we came up with here. So remember I said you're going to get 3 cards out of this. And see, this tape is so old, it doesn't even stick to my paper. It comes up real easy. Well, let me show you how you're going to do that. Now, this is because we're not using the full paper. So when you layer, you've got all this background in here that you're layering that doesn't even show. But when we add the black cardstock, it's going to cover up these gaps. So this is how I'm able to come up with 3 cards using this hack. And you see that the butterflies are lining up perfectly. All right, so that's going to be our 3 cards. Okay, so the next thing you want to do is you want to get your cardstock, your black cardstock, and this is going to be our base. This is the black one that was the full cardstock. Remember, we folded it in half and then we cut it right down the middle. This is going to be our base. So let's put one together. Now for the first piece, you don't have to layer it with the black cardstock because this is your layering piece, okay? So you're just going to go ahead and add some glue. You don't want to pop up the first layer. And then just line it up so you have a nice even border. Okay, Now your second piece, I pre-cut this, which is my 4 1/4 or 4 1/2 by 3 1/4 is this piece here. All right, and that's going to be my second layer. And as you can see, it mats perfectly onto this. So you're not going to see this background here when you add the foam dots. So we're going to add our glue. And I like using the wet adhesive because it allows me to be able to center my piece perfectly. If we were using the, the tape, once you stick it down, it's stuck. So I learned that a long time ago, and I don't usually get it right the first time. So it takes me a minute to make sure I have it. And then that's going to go here, but let's go ahead and layer our third piece, which is this one here. And there you go. All right, so now all you need to do is add your foam dots. Let's see. Now, depending on if you want to tie a ribbon underneath, be strategic about your foam dots. So if you know you're going to add ribbon underneath this, don't put, the foam dots right in the middle necessarily. Just kind of think about what type of embellishments you're going to be adding, and if you need to have that open space on the bottom. For this particular one, I think we're going to go ahead and add a ribbon. So I'll show you how I'm doing that. Okay, and then I like to add just a little extra adhesive, depending on what kind of foam dots you use. This may not be necessary, but I do. Make sure your image is going the right direction and kind of eyeball. I mean, you have a butterfly right there and a butterfly here. You want to eyeball it just to make sure it is cohesive. You don't want to line it up and the wings are off, but you want to eyeball it just to make sure your images are lined up here. Is that making sense, everybody? Yeah? Okay, good. And then you're going to do the same thing with this piece here. My chair just went down. I don't know if probably can't tell. My office chair sometimes just goes down on me, so now I have to raise it back up. Hold on a second. Okay. So again, I'm lining it up here, making sure my flowers are kind of matching. I don't have any butterflies to worry about because the tip of the butterfly is underneath because of my black border. But as you can see, it lines up perfectly. And now you have 2 other cards that you can do exactly the same thing. So you can get 3 cards with 1 sheet of paper. Now's the fun part. This is where you get to embellish. So you can, if you want to add any stamping, I would recommend doing it before you actually layer it up. So for instance, on this one, maybe we'll add some stamping. Maybe we want to add some remnant rubs, but do it when it's flat because that's going to give you your best result, of course. If you want to add any ribbons, you can do that after the fact. Got my scissors. But the embellishment part is completely up to you. You can either embellish it or not. You know, if you want to add some sort of a ribbon to your card, you can do that. Probably want to wait till it dries. I'm actually jumping the gun here, but I just want to show you. You want to make sure that your images are completely dry before you start messing with it like I'm doing here. So I'm just trying to be real careful. All right. All right. So now I have a little bow here. And then if I want to add a butterfly, I had a couple of choices here. So we can add, you know, the little butterflies, or if you want to add the bigger butterflies, I'm using these from Tim Holtz. Any embellishment you want to at this point. I mean, once you have your layers, then the embellishment part is completely up to you. I kind of like the bigger ones. Let's see what I got here. Pour them out. All right. Let's see. It's pretty. I think I'm going to go with the oversized one. So I'm going to move this down just a bit. And then when I do my foam dots, because these are transparent, I try to get my dots right in the middle. So hopefully they won't show through. And then again, I'm just adding a little bit of glue. And that definitely is going to need to sit a minute to dry. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Let me go ahead and take us off mute here for a second. Oh, there we go. All right. Now we're unmuted. All right. So do you guys have any questions on that, on how I put this together? It's a pretty easy technique. I mean, the most difficult part, I would say, is when you are putting it together to run it through your Big Shot. You just have to make sure your paper doesn't move, because if it moves, then you're not going to be able to line up your images as well as you want to. So that's just something you need to think about. Now, if you wanted to do it with a stamping set, it's exactly the same thing, but you're just going to layer it with the black cardstock and then layer it up. But I really like it with the paper because I can get 3 cards off of 1 sheet of paper. And if you're working with digital images, you know, you're having to print and that takes ink. So you want to try to get the most for your buck. And being able to get 3 cards with 1 sheet of paper is really a bonus. And, you know, it's great because, I mean, there's a lot of empty space here, but you don't see it. I mean, if you look at this, it kind of looks like it's 3 different pieces of paper here, but truly it's just the one. And it's just a matter of deceiving it by putting the layers and propping it up. And then, you know, once you embellish it, you can add, you know, little sentiments if you want to. But you got to have a little bit of foresight on that, because if you want to, like I said, if you want to add remnant rubs or if you want to do any stamping, I would recommend doing it when your paper is flat versus once it goes on the card. So that's kind of how that works. All right, so let's go ahead and do this one up here. Well, actually, let's do the inside. So the inside is really fun. So I make sure if you're not part of the group, go definitely go and join the group, because I've already sized these for you to work perfectly for an A2 card. So you don't even have to worry about it being in Photoshop or anything like that. So let me go ahead and mute us. All right, I think we're muted. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do the inside of the card. Now, when I'm doing my cards, I like to have borders in the inside. I just like the way that it looks. I know everybody's a little different when it comes to that. So when I trim my cardstock, again, I kind of go with a 1/4 inch rule of thumb. So I know that this is 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. So my border usually is 4 inches by 5 1/4, and then this piece is 1/4 inch smaller. So that's kind of how I do it in rules of 1/4 inches. All right, let's find some paper here I can work with. Okay, so my border is 1/4 inch smaller than my base, and then this will be 1/4 inch smaller than that. So four. And this will be 5. And then just add your adhesive like you normally would. And this part is optional, but I like matching the inside of my card to my outside. And I know that matting it and adding the extra black cardstock gives a little bit of weight, but I really like the finished look that it gives. But that's completely optional. Once you kind of get the layout of your card complete on the outside, the inside is completely up to you. But look how pretty that matches. I just think that's so pretty how it matches. And here's our card. Yep, and I didn't even need to mat it. So I was doing it on white before. So if you're, I forgot I was working with black cardstock. So if you're working with black, you may want to mat it with something else. I just happened to mat it with black because I forgot I was working with a black card. So you could have just probably glued this right on top of that. I don't typically work with black cardstock bases, but since it was already matting it, I figured why not. And the extra layer does give it some sturdiness as well. So if you're not working with 110-pound cardstock, having the double mat gives it a little bit more structure. And that's it. I mean, that's as easy as it is. All right, so let's go ahead and do this one. Okay, so let me get my cardstock. Okay, we're going to do this again. All right. I'm going to take us off mute. There it goes. All right.
We have to unmute ourselves.
You guys are off mute now. All right. So my cuts here were for my favorite cardstock, so I have to rethink this. So we're going to redo this one. But this is really what I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you where the technique originated from, because this was the technique. This is what I see everybody doing. Whenever I saw triple time card stamping, it was always with the stamp. It was never with digital images. And I looked because I wanted to be able to give you something that I hadn't seen before. I mean, I'm sure people have done this, but I wasn't able to find it. But even when I was just playing with it before I came up with using the actual rectangular dies, I did it by eyeballing it, and I could never get my images to match up. But by doing it with the actual die, you're able to line it up perfectly because you have all three cards stacked up together at the same time. So it worked pretty well. And I love the fact that you get 3 cards out of 1 card sheet. I mean, I think that's awesome. But you don't even have to use a digital sheet. If you wanted to, you can start out. I mean, I know that there are paper card stock out there that are the, hold on a second. You know, they have matching card stocks out there like this, or even the smaller ones. And the only thing you have to remember is when you're cutting your 3 papers, make sure you cut them exactly the same. You have to start out with your paper being exactly the same. So that way, when you run it through your die machine with your dies, you know that the images will line up. And you can get as detailed as you want to on this. I mean, as you can see, this paper is pretty detailed, but I was able to line up the butterflies with no problem. And that's it, you guys. I mean, it's a pretty easy technique. We're going to go ahead and do this one again.
I finished my card.
Oh, let's see it.
I'm just trying to decide on a
oh, that looks great.
I'm trying to decide on the color of butterfly, if I want to do the purple or I have a blue.
Very nice.
Thank you. You're a good teacher.
Well, this was the first time it was a structured cat class, so I wasn't able
I have a huge butterfly, but I feel like this one's so big.
But you know what? I like it big. I mean, these are big as well, but I like how it covers both of, you know, the other mats.
Yeah.
So I think oversized is better. I used the smaller butterflies on this one, but that's just because this paper tended to be so bold and pretty, and I wanted the butterflies to be on the background. But I love the oversized butterfly. I just think it looks so pretty.
It covers my bow because I did my bow on the second layer instead of the first.
Yeah. There's lots of variations you can do. So real easy. So let's go ahead, and we still have some time. The demonstration actually went pretty quickly. So let's go ahead and do this one. All right. So let me just get some white cardstock here. Okay. And like I said, you have your cutting instructions here, so you should be pretty good.
Well, was there cutting instructions on a page?
Yeah, you have them on the PDF.
Oh, okay. I just followed what you said.
Yeah,
when you were just showing the demo.
Yeah, so the PDF will have the instructions, and it will have your measurements as well. So that way, I know a lot of times when I'm crafting, I like to have my measurements right by me. Just to have them. All right, so let's go ahead and do this together, because my demonstration's over, you guys, for the most part, on how to do it. Now we can go ahead and make some cards together.
Awesome. And
then we can chat along the way if we have any questions. All right, so let me grab some more paper. And let's see.
I just grabbed a piece of 12 by 12 that I had that had sunflowers on it.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
How you doing, Kim?
Doing okay. Doing okay. Just still trying to wake up. I just got up from a nap just about 5 or 10 minutes before he logged on, and I'm just not completely awake yet.
What I like about this also is if you are doing the stamping technique, you can just pull one piece of white cardstock out, and then one piece is your base, and then the other piece you can do for your layers. So you don't have to use tons of cardstock either.
Right. I feel like there's another name. I felt like I was having a deja vu when I was doing it. So I feel like it's out there. It must be called something else.
For the layering?
Yeah, I just haven't seen it around in a long, long time, but it felt familiar, like when I was cutting it.
Yeah. No, I know I've seen it with the, like I said, the stamping techniques, but I could not find anything with the layers, because when I was first started to put together the class, I wanted it to be something something simple to do,
Yeah.
and follow along. But I didn't necessarily want to just copy a YouTube channel, so I was kind of searching out there. And I also wanted to get what the measurements were. And originally, when I was putting the class together, I wasn't even using my rectangular die, but I couldn't get a great image.
I don't have those either. I cut these with my cutter.
Oh, wow, you did a great job. I couldn't get mine to match up.
I did them with the paper. Well, it was this kind of paper trimmer.
Oh, yeah, perfect.
And I just stopped a ½ an inch in, and then I cut the black layer a ¼ inch bigger.
Yep.
Because I have nesting dies from Spellbinders, but it's like a set of 4, and they're like ATC size. They're little.
Oh, yeah. Right, so let's see here.
So I was like, darn, I'm going to have to hand cut this.
And it's doable. I mean, you were able to do it. It's just, it's nice to be able to get 3 cards out of one scrap piece of paper, out of one paper. That's what I like about it. Right.
Yeah, this is one sheet. This is just one sheet of paper.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I cut the middles out each time.
Oh, perfect. Oh, perfect. 3/4.
Yeah, I still have a whole 3/4 of a sheet of paper left.
And this one.
Yeah, that's pretty. I like it with that paper too. I like that paper.
The which one? The one that I used?
The one that you're using. Is that the sunflower paper?
Yeah, it is really pretty.
Yeah, I still have all of this because I just cut that one card size out of the painting.
Yeah, that's
so
great.
But it'll be nice when I can start getting some digital stuff so I can, but I can't, I never even go out. So to get to Staples,
yeah,
I can get some, I guess, and build them up. But my fear is like, oh, they're just going to sit there on my thumb drive. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm waiting till I know I'll get there and get them printed out or get a printer. That's the ideal thing. I just want a printer.
1, 2, 3. All right, so here's my layers.
Could do this with your Easter kits.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The watercolor. Yeah. I'm going to try to do this without my Misty here. I'm going to see how well I can do this. All right. I think if I maybe just.
Thank you for my card, by the way. I have it hanging on my my line of happiness.
Oh, you're welcome.
My sunflower clothesline up there.
Oops.
All right. That should work. And then I'm just going to use my acrylic block.
So, you convinced me. I used the big butterfly.
Yeah, I think the big butterfly is really pretty.
I like the blue with the yellow, and the blue has the gold accents too, so it works out, I guess. Yeah, I think I remember this. I remember this with stamping for sure.
Yeah, there were a lot of techniques out there with stamping.
Yeah, I like the paper because you can, my goodness, the papers are so pretty now.
Yeah. Yes, they are. Okay, starting moving on me.
I like the new Boy Scout one you got too. Nice masculine set.
Thanks. I have to figure out where this is going to go.
Next, April, you got Easter, Mother's Day. Oh, wow, you're covered pretty far ahead. You got Mother's Day, Father's Day, Easter already.
Yep.
Your kids.
Yeah, I worked in advance. So I have several out there that are already made. See, already I don't like how the paper moves. That's why I kind of like the die cut. It's like one and done. It works pretty well with the Misty though, but I mean, not everybody has the stamping tool, you know?
Right. Yeah, and I don't think I would like, unless you just took your one piece before you cut it, Monica, and just stamp on it because you're just going to cut your insides out.
Well, on this one, I didn't cut my insides out, but you said that you did, right?
Yeah, but I didn't stamp. I just used paper like you did.
Oh yeah,
But
with the paper, definitely I would, yeah. But with
But
this, I'm gonna layer. Let's see how well this works.
I'm wondering if you could do it the same way as you do the paper. It's still going to go in layers, right?
Probably could. Yeah, you probably could.
Because we're still using one piece.
Well, the thing is with the paper, I mean, I guess if you cut it out ahead of time, you have to get your bottom layers. You know, with this, my papers were all the same size when I ran it through my my Big Shot. But I guess if you cut them first, I don't know how to think about it. Or like, I know me.
Well, do you stack your dies? How are you doing your layering dies? You're stacking them, right? So you could just put 1, 2, 3.
All at the same time. Yep.
Oh,
Yeah.
so I would stamp on one piece and then cut the whole thing out. Even if your middle ones, you're still going to see it because that's going to be your top layer.
Right. Yeah, I'll have to try that.
I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something. You can tell me if I'm missing something.
Well, I have to walk through it. It's probably me. My focus.
So you're adding more than one sheet. Oh, I see what so you're adding 3 actual pieces of paper instead of using it the same.
Yeah, when I stamp, I'm adding 3 papers. Right. Right.
Oh, see, I would have just stamped on one sheet and cut the middles out like I did for the digitals.
Oh yeah, I guess you could do that. Yeah, but it just requires so much precision, though. How did you cut it out perfect? I mean,
I just went to a half an inch. Well, you said go in 1/4 of an inch.
Right.
So the first layer I went in 4 by 5 1/4.
Right.
And then I brought the next one in. I said, well, the next piece I want to be at least an inch smaller. So I'm going to go a half an inch, like leave a half-inch border.
So your cutter was able to cut out just the inside?
Yeah, I use this guy.
Oh, so you're able to stop at a certain point.
Yeah, it's got that the little measurer, you know, that's here. So I just made sure I went to only a half an inch to the border.
Yes, I'm with you.
And then I flipped it and did a half an inch. So I just cut all the way to my middle.
Yeah, I'm with you now. And it doesn't work on this.
No.
Yeah. So
No, but if you're using your dies, if you're using dies for layering, you could do all your stamping on one layer before you cut it.
I could, yep. Or using my Misty, I'd be able to precision stamp all 3 layers exactly the same way. And then, but my paper would be too thick. I mean, again, with my digital paper, I printed out on thinner paper, knowing
but so with each of your papers, did you cut like, so I think I'm losing you. I mean, so your papers, are they cut like this where you just cut the outsides?
Mine are, yeah.
So when you stamp, you just do the same thing. You cover it just like it's a digital piece of paper. And then you lay your dies down and cut it out, and you have one piece, and you layer each of those layers on your black the same way you did your digital.
I'm hearing you, but it's not comprehending.
So you won't have 3 full sheets. I see what you're talking about with stamping, because you're putting 3 sheets together and stamping. But you really just need 1 sheet of your biggest layer, because you're going to cut the middles out, become your second and third layers.
Yeah, if I'm able to cut the middles out, yeah. And I guess using my die, I could.
If you're using your layering dies.
Yeah, no, I'll have to try that when I have a second to think about it. But I know with the stamping technique, it was just a matter of stamping all 3 together.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do a stamping one so I can kind of explain what I'm seeing.
All right.
My mind, though, sometimes, I don't know. I think I have Asperger's. My mind thinks in such a different direction. Not that it's a bad thing. What's that, Kim?
A different dimension?
Yeah, which that's okay. I don't mind. All right. Let me see.
How are you doing, Suzanne? You with us?
I'm with you. I just have been on mute. I seem to have gotten some bronchial thing, which I'm not sure exactly what happened. We had a month ago a little minor flood in the house, and Servpro came in and sprayed that antibacterial stuff. And then we've had temperature changes, like one day hot, one day cold. And I think it just got to my lungs. And so I've sort of had this cough and stuff. So I just kept myself on mute so that I wouldn't be coughing in your video.
I appreciate that.
I hope you feel better, Suzanne.
But I'm with you, and I do get what you're saying, Dawn, about only having to stamp on 1 sheet. I get it.
This is my dies. I'm going to do the smaller version, and I'm just going to stamp on this 1 piece, and I'm going to cut them out, and then I'm going to layer each of them on black. And it's going to be the same thing.
You are using dies then. Okay. All right. So
I am now. I am now on this, because these are the smaller dies. On this, I just cut the layers out. I cut them out of the middle.
I see. Yeah, well, go ahead. Stamp your image and then show us.
Okay.
So we're going to have to pay Dawn for this tutorial here.
What? No.
I'm just playing.
No way. I just was saying that I realized on the stamping one that you were doing 3 full layers instead of your middle being cut out like your digitals.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking you could say that you just do the same thing, stamping because you're not going to see that layer underneath.
You're not. Yeah, because you've got your black border.
Right.
Yeah. All right, let's see. Go ahead. Show us.
I gotta find a stamp.
I want to see this. Let's see.
Oh, you do?
All right. I'm gonna.
Oh no. Not a jelly beans.
Uh-oh.
All right.
I'm going to turn off the recording.